Hello, everyone. Hope you're well and welcome back to the latest episode of MMA from London to LA. Well, unfortunately, we're one man down in the crew. Chris Allen couldn't make it. However, we still have two of us. My name is Callum, and we have the one and only Colin Crandall representing Los Angeles. Colin, how are you doing?
Doing great, Callum. Always great to work with you. We miss our third team member, Chris. This is the second week in a row,
Yeah,
and the next week will be a bit difficult with him, but then he'll be absolutely jumping back on.
the
And
team will be back.
without a doubt, the Three Musketeers will be back together again.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Right, off the back of UFC 288, it's in the books, in the history books. I mean, not the greatest of cards. I
Mm,
mean, a bit
yeah.
pretty difficult watch, but we have some definitive, or do we even have definitive answers? Aljamain Sterling is still the bantamweight champion. Bilal Muhammad will, in theory, be the next title challenger to the winner of Colby Covington and Leon Edwards at 170. Yan seems like she'll be next for Wei Lee, and it might have been the last fight, the last time we see Kron Gracie in the octagon. But that being said, let's start at the top. Aljamain Sterling wins a split decision victory over Henry Cejudo. Firstly, Colin, do you agree with the outcome?
I do. I felt that Aljo edged him, but I wouldn't have been upset if they called it a draw. I know everyone else in the world would have been, but I guess I may have been as well. But I meant
Yeah.
as far as whether it would have been valid, it would have been, or possibly a slight win for Cejudo. It was really a close competitive fight. I mean, it was a very very good fight. No one rocked anyone, and I think if anyone knocked anyone down, it wasn't a dramatic knockdown. No one was close to a submission. So that was all those things were a bit disappointing, as those elements tend to bring the excitement for us fans. But leaving that off, it was a very good fight. It was a competitive fight. Both men had a lot of skill. I think that they're both tremendous fighters and great champions. I'll give them both credit for different reasons. I'm going to give Aljamain Sterling, Aljo as they call him, a credit in that many people thought he would lose. The odds makers had it quite close, but many people thought he would lose because they felt Henry Cejudo was certainly the far more decorated wrestler, and they felt Henry Cejudo had proven to be the better striker if you look at the last few fights of Henry's. And so a lot of people were feeling this was a great betting opportunity to bet Henry Cejudo at nearly even odds. Now, so credit given to Aljamain Sterling for making all of that look completely invalid. On the flip side, right, credit to Henry Cejudo for coming off 3 years layoff and being 36 years old, 3 years the elder of Aljamain Sterling. And those 3 years are are somewhat to very significant, especially in the lower weight classes. You know, many fighters you can see will be fighting at 32, 33, perhaps 34 at bantamweight, but not many still at 36. And especially coming off a 3 year layoff. Not only that, but you see the height difference. And I believe there probably was somewhat of an overall weight difference, but the difference is Henry Cejudo is a muscular, shorter guy. He had gained a lot of weight while he had been retired, but it wasn't really a lot of muscle, but some fat, right? Whereas Aljamain Sterling is shredded, muscular, shredded.
Anything. It's ridiculous.
At that weight. So in reality, I wouldn't be surprised if when they're both in great shape, not dehydrated, Aljamain is probably 150 pounds and Henry is probably 141 or 2 pounds.
Yeah.
And so Aljamain is the bigger man, not insanely bigger. It's not like someone's out of their weight class by that much. But nevertheless, for Henry Cejudo as the smaller man, the older man, and having come off a 3 year layoff and to have done that well is quite impressive, to say the least. So they both did things and proved things that were very impressive to me. And the fight was so close. They both wanted it so much pride. And I think the decision was fair. I don't think too many people could complain. Like I said, I had it 3-2 Aljamain. Could have seen a draw. Could have seen 3-2. Cejudo. Haven't talked to you about it yet, though. What was your take
Yeah.
on the decision?
I actually, so again, I'm quite biased to this. I wanted Aljo to win because
Right.
Jamaican
both of
heritage.
you. Yep.
Yeah. I actually though did score it for Henry. I scored it 3-2 for Henry. I think it was weird watching the performance from Aljo because he barely used his jab, and you think he's got that range. He barely used a teep kick to keep distance and range. He was almost fighting like he was a shorter fight, which was very weird. It almost went as though he had a point to prove, like, oh, I can do the inside fight and I can out wrestle the wrestler. I actually think he could have made the fight so much easier for himself if he decided to keep Henry at range and keep him at the end of his jabs or the end of his punches. And again, even some of the takedown attempts, he was diving in. We say diving in naked because he wasn't disguising the takedown attempts. He was just throwing himself in from a far distance away. And you're thinking, you can't do that against Cejudo. He's too good for that. But again, I don't think it's a robbery either way. If it went either way, I don't think it's a robbery. I scored it to Henry, but I can understand why some scored it to Aljo as well.
Yeah, I agree. And the only people that kind of surprised me are the people that felt that Aljo won clearly.
No, that's crazy.
It is, and then several people are saying that. But no, I think either a 1-point win either way or a draw would have all been acceptable, and that's what it was. But yeah, as they say in Australia, good on you for being objective, even though you were cheering for your fellow Jamaican heritage man. You scored it the other way. So I like hearing when a journalist is objective because that's what we pride ourselves on doing. Although it's hard sometimes. But it was a really, really good fight. You know what I think? I don't know that they would do it again anytime soon. But I think if they did, well, you know what though? Then you'd have different circumstances. If they did it again, you could say that Aljo would probably have even more confidence, knowing that prior to that, a lot of the word was that Henry was just going to take him apart. But then on the flip side, Henry would then not have as much ring rust. But then again, Henry's only getting older, being 3 years older than Aljo. So I guess perhaps why don't we jump onto that? Do you see it happening anytime again? Before you answer that question, if it were two other champion number one contender, and one hadn't been retired for years, and one wasn't 36 years old, certainly an even match like that would dictate an immediate rematch. In boxing, for sure, UFC, MMA in itself doesn't like to do that much. But wouldn't you agree that under different circumstances, if they were both similar age, younger, and not, that a match like that would have had an immediate rematch booked?
In theory, it's difficult. As you said, with boxing, you'd probably stipulate that it would. But in MMA, it's a bit weird because they like to. Yeah, they like to keep the machine moving, as they say. It's weird because I think Henry's taking that time out. He took that time out during his peak years. He was just coming into his peak. He made those decisions for himself, and look, Henry's got every right to make those decisions. He's such a decorated athlete, but I do think it hampered him. I don't think they'll do a rematch with this.
No, well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It almost looks for sure because they already brought in Sugar Sean O'Malley.
I was going to ask you, what did you make of all of that? Them bringing in O'Malley into the cage and Marab stealing his jacket. And
okay, the latter part I love. Somebody I shared this. Somebody online showed about the 30 seconds of that happening with the old Pink Panther. I don't know if you remember those movies. Right? And and it was so perfect how it happened too, and you know why. At least most of us do. What happened was there was a bunch of men in there circling things. I think one or two may have been security, but it was basically, I think everyone wants to have an ego that they're not a flunky or they're not a subordinate, right? So when he took off his jacket, he handed it to someone who clearly said, I'm not someone who's carrying someone's jacket here. And then gave it to someone else. And
ended up with Marab.
Right, and then someone else said, I'm not carrying a jacket here. And then Marab was like, wait a second. Yeah, I'll put on this jacket. And then
he is a national treasure, that guy. He really is.
And it was so brilliant because there he is. When Aljo and Sean are facing each other, Marab is sitting back here with the jacket on, going like, He was just wondering if Sean would have turned or would have been hilarious. But
He's
yeah, that
brilliant.
was brilliant. I love that. I really did. But you know, the bringing in Sugar Sean, I will tell you what. Not previous, but sorry, other associations have done that. Boxing will do that. As a longtime boxing fan and even a pro wrestling fan, as I was for years, I always loved that. I used to always crave seeing that. And I used to always be disappointed because the UFC made it a habit never to do that. I think they felt it was too much WWE. Speaking of which, maybe now that Endeavor owns both, maybe that was a thinking. Because UFC spent years deliberately saying no, we're not going to play that. And I think in a way also it's somewhat disrespectful of the person who just lost. All of a sudden, Henry Cejudo's brushed to the side, and then on top of that, you bring in a guy to yell at a guy who's exhausted, having just fought the fight of his life. And you know, so it was dramatic. It was hard to hear completely everything they were saying. It was just the trash talking. But yeah, you know, I thought it was exciting, but apparently times have changed in the UFC. Now we're going to see probably stuff like that, and it does promote an upcoming matchup. And you want to speak on that matchup for a minute, or you want to just do that at a different time?
Well, I'll leave the O'Malley fight for now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I think that will definitely happen. But I do want to speak about Aljo's title reign up until now. What have you made of it? And what's your thoughts on him being considered the bantamweight GOAT potentially at this stage?
You know, a bit premature, I would say, for that. And I like Aljo. I've been cheering for Aljo for quite a while. I like that camp over there of Serra Longo, with Matt Serra there and Ray Longo, the coach, and so many other tough guys. So let's examine this. So
he won the title against Yan.
Yeah, he won
in a controversial fashion.
Yep, disqualification.
Then defended it against Yan to kind of solidify his claim
in a split decision victory. Yeah.
Then he beats TJ,
who was injured coming in and compromised. Yeah.
And then wins last night
against the 36 against the 36-year-old Henry Cejudo, who had 3 years off. Yeah, I'd say a bit premature to be the GOAT, although who else? You know what? Well, no, I shouldn't say who else. TJ Dillashaw, if his career wasn't kind of besmirched with the question mark of taking steroids, would have been probably still it. But if you remove him, Dominic Cruz, but then a lot of people can say that it was a slightly different time, or his opponents weren't the best. But I don't know if I'd agree with that. I think right now probably still Dominic Cruz would be the holder of that distinction. But Aljo is a good fighter. I mean, he can't help the fights that he's had. Peter Yan, he did beat twice, one to split decision, one to legal knee. Yan looked like he started to fade a little bit after that, like that broke his spirit in his subsequent fights. But he was a hell of a contender then. And Dillashaw did get hurt during that fight. I mean, Aljo is a really, really good fighter. I definitely think is he in discussion for the bantamweight GOAT, perhaps, because of the fact that the other ones, Dillashaw with the steroids, and then I mean, in all honesty, it probably is. And then Cejudo only had 2 fights, am I correct, or 3?
Yeah, Marlon Moraes and Dominic Cruz.
Okay, so he beat Dominic Cruz, who had already had like 5 surgeries and was past his prime.
Yeah. And you could argue that was an early stoppage as well.
Which I think it was. Yeah, I felt those. And then he beat Moraes, who's out of the league, who was tough though. Moraes really in that fight. So I mean, in all honesty, I think probably Dominic Cruz, and then it's a question of whether you like what TJ accomplished with the asterisk because of steroids, as opposed to Henry Cejudo and Aljo, and then Aljo winning. Yeah, he's in the talks, but I think maybe that picture will probably be a lot more clear to make a rhyme by this time next year.
Yeah, it's a weird one. You almost feel as though Aljo needs that rivalry to really solidify him, because at the moment he's not really had a rivalry. And the ones that he has sort of had a seem sort of manufactured rather than being organic, and I think us fans can see through that now. I don't think you can make up a rivalry. You either have it or you don't. You look at DC and John Jones, that was as organic as you can get.
Yep.
There was never really a rivalry between him and Henry Cejudo, both just highly competitive fighters who wanted to get the best outcome. But I think they forced it a little bit, and you could see that. And I think unless Aljo gets that definitive win or that definitive rivalry, I think he's always going to be a champion that's wrongfully disrespected.
I agree. A convincing and dominant win over Sugar Sean O'Malley, though, won't hurt his cause, of course.
Yeah.
And that's what I think will happen. I don't know what the betting odds are going to look like there, but in all honesty, I feel almost like Aljo would have to slip on a banana peel that someone's thrown into the cage during the fight with Sean O'Malley to lose that fight. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and it's funny. That's one of those things on television and movies they used to have back when I was a young child. They had like slapsticky thing where someone would really slip on a banana peel.
Yeah.
You know, that was just somewhere someone finished eating and throwing it off
Yeah,
to the side.
sorry.
Yeah, they don't do. They should bring that stuff back. What do they say? Everything that's old is new again because it hasn't been seen for so long. But nevertheless, yeah, good fight. All right, and both really tough guys. Certainly, we know Aljo next is going to be Sugar Sean. Don't know where Cejudo is going to go next. Not to spend too much more time on it, but you know what? What if? What do you think of Merab versus Cejudo?
I don't think Cejudo takes that fight
because he probably might lose. Yeah.
Yeah, just I think even when you listen to his post match, he was very. He's very transparent in what he wants to accomplish. He wanted to win this fight, wanted to fight O'Malley for the pay-per-view, and then wanted to go up and fight Volk. I think last night was a realization for him. If he's going to struggle against Aljo, he's got absolutely no chance against Volk at this time in his career.
Right. What would you think about Cejudo versus Sandhagen? Maybe what a difference, like 7-inch height difference.
Here's the thing: Cejudo, if you wanted to stick around, you could put him in. Like Yan is a great fight.
Yeah.
Sanhagen's a great fight.
Yep.
Merab is a great fight. Cheeto Vera, there's great fights all around. I just don't think he wants to stick around. I think if he got another title shot, he'll take it. But apart from that, I don't think he'll try and build his way back up to a title shot.
And are you thinking only that he wouldn't do that at bantamweight, or he would not fight at all?
I don't think he's going to fight again.
I think you might be right because he's such a great teacher. This fight was so close. I mean, if you can't go out on a win, second best or next best would be going out on a fight that many people, half the people felt that you won. And so, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. Nevertheless, you want to move on to the co-main event?
Yes, indeed, the co-main event. Remember the name. We all remember the name now.
Yes,
Bilal Muhammad defeats Gilbert Burns by unanimous decision. Literally took every round, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Again, first round, Burns goes for a takedown, hurts his shoulder. However, Bilal Muhammad did what he had to do throughout the fight, kept it standing, which is a surprise to everyone. We all thought that he would go for takedowns and try and control him on the ground. He did what he had to do. Again, not the most entertaining of fights, but have to respect Bilal Muhammad's great win streak, and he now seems like he's definitively the next opponent for the winner of Edwards and Covington. Was it the outcome you expected?
No, it wasn't. And I was in a noisy sports pub and didn't see when he got hurt. And all I noticed was that he wasn't fighting.
Yeah.
And I even made a tweet that I said, why isn't Gilbert throwing anything? And so, the bottom line is that taking nothing away from Bilal. Bilal's a nice guy too. I've interviewed him once. Really good dude. Actually, twice. Once in person and once on my show. But apparently they both came in somewhat banged up. People were thinking
Bilal's ankle.
Yeah, people were thinking Bilal was more banged up, and I think it looks like it was Burns more banged up. Burns had that fight a month earlier. I know, darn, I picked Burns to win, but as a bettor, I should have known better as a gambler, and I'm not a large gambler at all. But But I should have thought about that at 36 years old, having fought just 1 month earlier, even though it was pretty dominant, but I should have realized that makes it a no play, no action for that bet, or going on the other side. Nevertheless, very, 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 very frustrating, because this was not Gilbert Burns. He was compromised. He was injured. He at a couple points threw hard, but he he couldn't shoot. You can't grab. You can't, and it's, but I say this, at 36 years old, and I think he was only a year or two older than Bilal, but nevertheless, when you start getting past that mid-30s, injuries happen, as we all know from all sports. You've got soccer, European football, right? The fighters start getting that age. Basketball, you're right. Hockey, American football, rugby. This is Father Time starting to let you know, listen, you haven't got long left for this young man's career. And it's unfortunate, but I feel that Burns at full strength wins that fight. Nothing against Bilal. Yeah, because without doing anything, he lost each round, but he kind of hung in there in the action. And so I think that the only thing is that at 36, not a tremendous amount of time left. But then again, he's got to heal. So and
might even need surgery potentially as well.
Right. So more than likely, Gilbert Burns is out of action for the rest of this year, perhaps, and it's only May. And then he'll be 37. But that's not, worse if he was going to be 39, going to be 37, So I still am anxious to see him come back, and I think that he'll do well in his comeback. And so now, if you look at Bilal Muhammad, who is a very, very tough guy, as I mentioned, and right, and you where is it here? Here we go. And you look at the fact that he beat an injured, compromised fighter in Gilbert Burns, legitimate win over Sean Brady, who just kind of froze up, who didn't have the experience, and it turns out, doesn't have the elite wrestling maybe people thought he had, and so that was legit. But then against a Vicente Luque, he out wrestled him.
Wonder Boy.
Wonder Boy. I mean, there's still, I hate to say it, but there's still a question mark on Bilal. He's good, but I mean, the last thing we remember, and I'm sure you remember it as well, actually, is when he went up against, it's funny, here we were talking about Aljamain with the Jamaican background. Then we're talking Leon Edwards.
Leon.
You're British Jamaican. In fact, that makes you guys have the exact same background. British, Jamaican, British, right? I think Leon was beating the brakes off of him, as they say, in that fight. And so I feel that I mean, Bilal, having spent a whole 3 or 4 months with Habib and Team AKA under Javier Mendez and all those killers, I think definitely helped him. I think his body's looked better. He's stronger. He's more confident. But I think that it's going to be a question mark. I think whether he goes against Leon or if Colby beats Leon, I think Bilal should be perhaps a 3 or 4 to 1 underdog. In those fights.
Do you think he poses any threat to either of those fighters?
I think that as he wins, his confidence is getting better. He's getting stronger. He is not the youngest fighter himself. He is actually 34 and will be 35 just 2 months from now. So that doesn't help, especially. But you know what? Against Leon is decidedly younger. Leon is going to be 32 in August. So Leon is like 3 years and a month younger. But Colby Covington, I believe, is about the same age as Bilal. Let's take a look. Colby is 35 already. I think that Leon is more dangerous to Bilal than Colby. I think that maybe Bilal has improved a bit since the Leon fight, but I don't think dramatically. I think Leon's a bad matchup for Bilal, and 3 years younger. And I think that Colby would be a better matchup, but his wrestling is definitely better than Bilal's. Bilal's striking is better than Colby's, though. Although Colby can strike,
Yeah.
I think that Bilal has more of a chance against Colby than he does against Leon. I like Bilal, but I'd say he'd need to be an underdog to both.
Yeah, I agree. I like Bilal Muhammad as well. I think he took on a heel role that I don't think he necessarily needed to this week, but yeah, I don't see him beating either of Edwards or Colby Covington. But one thing I do think he definitely deserves a title shot, given his resume and his current win streak. There's no argument to say he should actually be getting a title shot ahead of Colby Covington, to be honest. So
yeah,
congratulations to Bilal Muhammad. Now, speaking of one future title challenger to another future potential title challenger, Yan Xiaonan. Wow.
Yeah. Very impressive. Yeah.
What a stoppage. And I mean, she was picking Jessica Andrade apart from the outside, but for me, it was always the case of it's going to be volume and accuracy versus strength and power. And it turned out to be volume, accuracy, strength, and power all the way of Yan. And it was a devastating shot that put her down, and then the subsequent ground and pound was just excellent. And we may potentially have a new title challenger at 115 now.
Yeah, we very well could. And if that fight does happen, it'll be the first time ever the UFC will hold a championship fight with both competitors from China. And it's kind of, that would be also kind of interesting, being the relationship now between the United States and China, which is quite strained. But then again, the good thing is it shows that athletes have nothing to do with the government.
Just on that, Colin, I was going to ask, because when it happened, the first thing I said, right, that fight's going to happen in China. You may have Song Yadong on the card. But I've been hearing rumblings saying that it's very unlikely that UFC will be going to China. Is that just out of the question completely?
Not being a member of I'm a credentialed media with the UFC, but not being a member of their working with them in any other way other than an independent media person. I can't say, obviously I can't say for sure, but here's what I will say. Dana White is a political conservative, like a majority of the media, majority of everyone that's a fan of the UFC. I'd say probably 75%. Maybe because of the fact that it's a old fashioned rugged man sport of combat, and I think that's lending itself lately in the United States with being at least more of a center or right political standpoint as well, because of the mindset. Nevertheless, there's certainly exceptions, but Dana White definitely is in that mindset himself. He's a political conservative. He's definitely one that is feeling like most that China has done quite a few things to not appear to be supportive and friendly of the United States. And not only that, but buying a lot of property, putting up TikTok that's gathering information on American citizens, and doing a whole lot of other things that the United States is not very happy about. So I would believe that Dana White would not have a lot of interest in going into China, taking any sort of chances there with security, and or necessarily doing anything to be tremendously helpful to the economy of China. And I can't blame him. They're only working to kind of injure the United States economy. Why would we go there and hold some huge event to make money for their economy? So I think unless someone can convince Dana White to completely change his perspective, he has no interest in that, and rightfully so.
Is that an opportunity missed for that fight to be over there? I completely get and understand where you're coming from, but it just seems like such bad timing, because you think, for example, let's say it was Darren Till and Leon Edwards who were both at 170 about to have a fight. You would want that in the UK. Like, that'd have to be in London or the UK somewhere. But I get it from a political standpoint. Do you think the fight happens next, though, for Wei Li and Yan? Is that the next title challenger?
I actually put out a poll last night, and let's take a glance. That's why I'm looking off to the side. Forgive me.
Okay.
So I took a poll, and we've got I think nearly 40 votes, and I'm going to leave it up for 3 more days. So who should be next for Yan Xiaonan? I put either Wei Li Zhang for the title, Rose Namajunas, Amanda Lemos, or Virna Jandiroba, who just won impressively over Marina Rodriguez. Tied for last was Virna Jandiroba and Amanda Lemos with 3%. Rose Namajunas had 27.3%, and Wei Li Zhang had 66.7%.
Wow.
Now, right, and I'm connected with a lot of people like yourself that are other MMA media people, podcasters, journalists, hardcore fans. Still, doesn't mean they speak for Mick Maynard or Sean Shelby. Let's take a look really quick, and not to spend too much more time on this, but let's see her body of work. She is 33 years old at 115 pounds, coming to the tail end of her prime, but still looking quite good. She did lose to, she won her first, she won her first, 6 UFC fights. Kaylin Curran was in 2017. I was at that fight, and I felt that she lost that fight, I'm pretty sure. Nevertheless, she won. She beat Viviane Pereira. She beat Suri Kondo. She beat Angela Hill. She beat Caroline Kowalkiewicz. She beat Claudia Gadelha. All were decisions. She lost by stoppage to Carla Esparza, who just beat the crap out of her.
Yeah, that was a hard watch, that was.
Yeah, it was, indeed. She came back and got a split win over Marina Rodriguez, and then barely got by Mackenzie Dern. I thought Mackenzie beat her, and then she stopped Jessica. I mean, there's talk about there's a thought that maybe Carla and or Virna Jandiroba would be more deserving.
Carla's pregnant at the moment.
That's true. So Carla can't do it. So Virna Jandiroba is. Let's take a really close look at her, and then I'll give you my final thought on that. So Virna, or Vina as they call her sometimes, is 34 years old, 1903. She has nearly as impressive record. She did lose to Carla, beat Mallory Martin, but she's finishing girls more. She stopped Mallory Martin, Felice Harry. She lost a close one to Mackenzie Dern. Beat Kanako Murata, lost a pretty competitive fight to Amanda Ribas, and then beat Angela Hill and Marina Rodriguez. I personally think give it to Virna Jandiroba. Yeah, but it's going to be close. I think either her or Xiaonan. But yeah, I think that Dana White feels very strongly in his patriotism and belief. One of the things, again, I don't want to be too political, but one of the things that's unfortunate is the United States, every country is patriotic. British is quite patriotic.
Yeah.
And we all have backgrounds from different countries, but many people like to be patriotic for the country they live in. You know what I mean? You may have a Jamaican background, you can still celebrate that, but I'm sure you're patriotic to an extent for England. For some reason, a lot of people are drawing criticism that if you're patriotic in the United States, that makes you some kind of a racist.
Yeah.
And that's quite unfortunate. Unfortunate. Because I know a lot of people are patriotic that I know of all different races and nationalities in America, and none of them are racist, including myself. So I think Dana White is a patriotic guy, and I think therefore he's not that happy with the stances that China is taking. I doubt that will be made in China. Should it? Would it be great? Would it be exciting? Would it really, the people show up and pay a lot of money for tickets? Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a thought also, maybe perhaps could that
ease
be
tensions.
something? Ease tensions, and it could have been, but the interesting thing is, and I'll put this to rest afterward, is it would be better if it was coming from the opposite direction. China, I think, it doesn't have any sort of argument for feeling that we're antagonizing them, except for to feel like we should stop meddling and let them collect Americans' information on TikTok and let them buy all the real estate they want in the United States and this and that. They're not trying to say we've done anything to show bad faith, just that we're not letting them buy up our country.
Yeah.
And, whereas on the flip side, they're doing quite a few things that are disrespectful to the United States. And so were this a Chinese promotion in this situation that would say, yes, I'm going to show good faith and I'm going to have our promotion in the United States to show the United States that we want a good relationship with them and we want to show good faith. That, I think, would be something that would be, if it were coming from that side, that would be make a difference. But the flip side, I think the United States we are already showing good faith.
Yeah.
And there's no need to go, I think, to China, to a place, a country that's not showing us good faith, and reward them with any sort of brilliant UFC show. My thoughts.
That makes total sense.
Several of them.
Yeah. Just back on that fight. What next for Jessica Andrade?
Wow, 115 is a hard cut for her, and I think that also may have been somewhat responsible for her not being able to take those punches, because even at 125 she got out wrestled and maybe outstruck a little bit against Erin Blanchfield, but that was on like a week's notice, 2 weeks notice, right? Yeah. And still, she was never in trouble in that fight. At 125, she's hydrated enough that you're not really going to hurt her. She's a little tank. I think at 115, she felt she was so much stronger and more muscular, and even though shorter, that she was heavier than these girls. But unfortunately, what it turned out is that she just didn't have the recovery ability, because the weight cut is too hard for her. So what I think is that she's got to forget about 115. I think at 125, she can be back. I think she's got to kind of. I think that may be the whole answer, in my opinion. She's only just turned 30 years old, I believe. And but yeah, I think 115, she can't do it anymore. And I think she's still got something left. But I think they need to have a full camp for their next fight at 125 pounds is my thought. What do you think?
I completely agree. And I think with Grasso beating Valentino, she's able to win the rematch. That opens up the division for Andrade, in my opinion. So I think 125 is a division for her.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm noticing we've gone 37 minutes already. Do you want to just quickly go through?
Yeah, quickly go through. So Evloev and Lopez, decent fight. I thought Lopez did nothing to hurt his stock. I think he's a very good addition to 45 division. Evloev, I still want to see the fight with him and Bryce Mitchell. What do you reckon?
Yeah, agreed. I would love to see that fight. I think it would be competitive. I think Lopez is really that good, even though it was a short notice fight for Evloev as well. I think Lopez is a real deal. Big, tall, strong guy, quick, good chin. But Evloev is a great fighter as well. I think these two may see each other down the line again. Yeah. And definitely want to see them both fight again soon.
And then the opening fight on the main card, Con Gracie versus Charles Air Jordan. Really weird fight. Con Gracie, in the build-up, didn't seem like he was really interested. Didn't seem like he wanted to be there. In the fight, seemed the same as well. And Jordan did what he had to do. Not his fault by any stretch of imagination, but can't fight like this anymore and expect high-level results, unfortunately. Do you think this is it for Con Gracie?
It may be, and I want to try to be measured here as I can, although I know some people will say, well, you've already spoken politically here and probably pissed off the Chinese government. I don't think the Chinese government is watching our podcast anyway. Yeah. And I have all the respect in the world for the Chinese people, wonderful people, government, not so much. Yeah. But in any case, I'm not any sort of Gracie apologist or apologist to anyone, but they did bring Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the United States, I think to England, to everywhere from Brazil. They're tremendous warriors. Their whole family is fighters. Can various members of their family lose to the highest level MMA fighters? Yes, especially since various members of their family are not professional MMA fighters. But if you take anyone else and brought their nearest 20 male relatives between the age of 18 and 35 and had them go to any 20 Gracie members of a Gracie family, your family won't win. That is for sure. Because even the worst of them is a badass who's probably a black belt in jiu-jitsu and who is a warrior with that mentality. So huge respect for the Gracie family. coming back at 34 years old after 3 years off, that does break that cardinal rule. Henry Cejudo overcame it a bit, although maybe he was a bit off of what he would have been had he not. But nevertheless, though, the Gracies are great in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Kron Gracie is elite in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. 34 is a bit past his prime for a 145-pounder. Nevertheless, his Jiu-Jitsu is still elite. It appeared to me that after really getting pieced up by Cub Swanson 3.5 years ago, that the reason why he left was to regroup and really buckle down on his wrestling and his striking.
Yeah.
In your early 30s, trying to become a much better wrestler is quite nearly impossible. Let's just be honest. Nearly impossible. Georges St. Pierre became an elite wrestler from a non-wrestler, but he started training hard when he was about 20 years old or 21, and that's late. Most American wrestlers start training at about 10 years old or younger. Nevertheless, 30s, no. You're just, no one's done it yet. Nobody, I think, yet, or probably anytime, is going to start really trying to focus on being a good wrestler in their 30s and become a really amazing wrestler. It's just the explosiveness, the movement is too much for your body at that age to be able to be great at. Can you improve? Yes. But anyway, what I had thought was that he wouldn't come out as any sort of elite wrestler, but that he would come out better, a better wrestler than he was, and that he would be using his wrestling, that we'd see some takedowns, whether it was a single or whether he'd shoot in for a double, not worried about being choked because of how, or whether he'd be going for ankle picks or doing something. And I thought he would have worked really hard on his striking. Striking is something you can get better on. However, once again, starting in your early 30s to really buckle down at striking, it will diminish how well, but you can improve your striking more at that age than your wrestling. So I thought he would have come back with one of the two dramatically improved, if that only, or both of them improved. And I was excited to see it. I thought he was going to be shooting, doing some feints, doing, looking like he was going to shoot to fake out Jordan, to make Jordan worry about the takedown. Maybe the first time, go for it. Try to chain wrestle a little bit. And then I thought he was going to come in with some punch kick. I thought he was going to come in with some side kicks and some teep kicks and some spinning back fists and some flying knees. And he didn't do any of it. And with all respect,
does it look like he's regressed almost?
He did nothing more than he did against Cub Swanson, except he did one thing worse. He jumped guard, and butt scooted on the ground.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Charles Jordan, I feel sorry for, because he's now been a part of this bad matchup. It wasn't his fault. He did absolutely everything he could.
Yeah.
I don't know where Kron Gracie goes from here.
I mean, Gracie's got a good chin. He can take a lot of punishment. He can.
Which, again, even more frustrating, because you think, because he's got a good chin, because he's got great jiu-jitsu, he can take more risks with his striking, because he knows if he gets hit, he's likely to absorb the punch or kick. But also, if he gets taken down, he's safe there as well. So
yeah. It makes you wonder, and I know we don't want to spend too much time on this because we're already 43 minutes in, but I thought I had heard him say something about he wanted a paycheck. Now, this is the thing. It's so hard to know where someone in his position stands. Obviously, he hasn't made much money at MMA. He's fought twice in MMA. I think his paycheck probably wasn't that much more than anyone else's at his level. Maybe a bit more because of his name, but it's so hard to know how many Gracies are making a lot of money. I think Horian Gracie, who trademarked everything, is making still a lot of money. I think Hoist Gracie and Hickson Gracie were doing private lessons and making a lot of money. Hoyler Gracie, maybe Henzo Gracie for sure, have a lot of schools and stuff. I think that The Gracie University guys, Horian's kids, Henner and Huron, are making good money with that. I don't know what kind of money and avenues for it that Crone Gracie has, and everyone has to work for money, so we can't cry crocodile tears just because he's a Gracie. But I almost feel like if he was so low on funds, and I don't think, even with his name, what do you imagine the most they might have paid him, even if only part of it was disclosed? 75,000, 100 maybe max, right?
Yeah.
I almost feel that if he went to his dad or his uncles and said, "Here's the thing, listen, I've got virtually no money. I can't even continue my school," or he probably runs 2 or 3 schools, but he probably, I feel like if he would have gone to his relatives and said, "Look, I need about $75,000 or $100,000 to take care of some things with my schools because membership is low since the pandemic and it's falling apart. Either that, or I go get my ass kicked in the UFC for that paycheck." I kind of feel like one of his uncles, someone might have said, "Yeah, let's avoid that, and let's pass you the $75,000 or $100,000." His uncle Horion is the Bill Gates called the Bill Gates of jiu-jitsu. And I would imagine Horion probably has 20, 30, $50 million. Wow. So, but then again, the Gracies, I think, pride their family members on being men who provide for themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I know is this, is that if I were an older Gracie member, like the age that I am, and although several of them are older than me, and I had a good amount of money in my savings account, and my nephew said, "Look here, listen, I need either a bit of money or I'm going to go get my ass kicked in the UFC." I would say let's avoid that. But so I just don't know. Because what did it accomplish? Nothing. Yeah. In fact, I hate to say this, and I know some complete, as you guys would say in England, wanker and muppet put a post up last night with a big picture of Crone Gracie and said, "Congratulations on the worst performance ever seen in the UFC." And I thought, is that what you want to do? You really clown a guy for having the courage to get in there? He took his beating. He took his beating like a man.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate because now you have hundreds of memes and all this, but courage though. He did have courage. He showed up. He did his best, and it's just a bit perplexing to me that why would he have done this without the skill set having been improved? I hope it wasn't money, but if not money, what would have been the reason?
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like if you or I were to go to the toughest guy over you at Renegade Gym and me over to Extreme Couture and say, "Listen, we're journalists. Let's give me your toughest guy. And let's see what's the point."
It'd be a very short interview, a very short night as well.
Yeah, yes, it would. It would. I don't know what it would accomplish, except for to say we were crazy enough to go to our local gym and have someone beat the crap out of us.
Exactly.
So I don't know. Anyway, that's my thought.
Before we move off this card, let's quickly look at 2 of the prelim fights. Kennedy versus Devin Clark.
Yep. The African, what is it? The African assassin, isn't it? Or no, the African. Here we go. I'm sorry, Kennedy. Forgive me. The African savage. There we go. Kennedy ends the finish. Yes, very tough guy, and big respect to Devin Clark, the Brown Bear. Great matchup. Devin had him going. And he didn't want to exhaust himself. Now, in retrospect, perhaps maybe he should have continued. But Kennedy is a big guy. He's got one of those big heads. A lot of these big head guys can't get hurt very, and then he just, Kennedy just turned on. Kennedy is one of these Rocky type of guys, speaking, from Nigeria. A lot of these guys, as we know, are great fighters in the UFC. And yeah, kudos to Kennedy. Devin gave it a hell of a shot. If his wrestling was perhaps a bit better, that could have been the end for Kennedy, even though his striking looked great. Great fight. Respect to Devin. I know he'll be back. Respect to Kennedy. Kennedy's a nice, humble, easygoing guy and a really good fighter. Big man at 6'5" for 205.
Yeah. And then two men that I know you've interviewed, Drew Dober versus Frivola. What a performance by Frivola, getting the finish over someone who rarely gets finished in Drew Dober.
Yeah, absolutely. That fight also was a bit premature, in my opinion. I know.
Some people, do you think so?
I feel so. Some people say no because he got up and he was wobbling a bit. But no, I do. I guess I don't know. I mean, I like Matt. I like both guys. Matt did everything perfect. I did think though that Drew was moving around and he was keeping his hands up. It was not like his arms were down and he was laying here getting pummeled like that. Although he did take a couple shots. Nevertheless, though, great shot by Frivola. Drew was favored after that big knockout over Bobby Green. At the high level, it's just a question of who gets there first. I don't think Drew made big mistakes, although he did maybe bob when he could have weaved. Bottom line, though, is a tremendous fight by Drew, tremendous fight by Matt. I think Drew will be back, and this gives Matt a chance to demand someone high up on the rankings. Yeah, I've actually, the last four men we just discussed, I've actually interviewed all of them several times. Devin 4 or 5 times, Kennedy 2 or 3 times. I've interviewed Drew 4 or 5 times, and Matt 4 or 5 times. Really, really good guys. Great win for Matt Frivola. I'm sure Drew will be back.
Indeed. Right, let's look at next week's card. So let's go through quickly and make some predictions.
Yes.
Tim Means versus Moreno, or Morano, should I say?
Alex Morano. Yep. Well, before we say that, when you say predictions, do you remember Rocky 3 where Mr. T was Clubber Lang against Rocky? And then they go, Clubber, what's your prediction against the rematch with Rocky Balboa? And he goes, what? And he goes, prediction. He goes, yeah, prediction. And he goes, pain. That's a classic line. I love that. What's your prediction? Pain. But nevertheless, always a big fan of Mr. T. Shout out to Mr. T.
Shout out to Mr. T as always.
Absolutely. Here we go then. We have this is going to be, I even forgot who was the first fight you asked me.
Tim Means and Alex Moreno.
Yes, the Dirty Bird, Tim Means. I've never interviewed him, but he's a good guy. Interviewed Alex several times.
Hell of a fighter.
Yeah, they're both great fighters. Alex, the Great White Morono. And I think for all people who don't know, the Great White has nothing to do with his race. It's for the Great White Shark.
Yeah,
the shark, yeah. So, Great White. Yep, Alex Morono, and he's a double tough guy, has his own Gracie Jiu-Jitsu school, Gracie Baja, the Woodlands. And a great black belt and teacher, great fighter out of Fortis MMA with teammate Kennedy and Zachukwu, by the way. And Alex was on a very good win streak, 4-fight win streak, had not lost in almost 3 years, where he lost Anthony Pettis in a very good fight, beat Donald Cerrone, beat David Zawada, beat Mickey Gall, beat Matt Semmelsberger, and Ponzinibbia caught him. And you know what, though? Forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am, and I'm not trying to be an apologist for Morono, but I do believe Morono was somewhat of a short notice.
It was.
And that being the case, he did even better. But I think he's got and then, I don't know if he has a full camp for this either. But if he doesn't, Means doesn't either. So in that last fight, Ponzinibbio did have a full camp. Alex didn't. This one is going to be even. And so Alex is going to really want to take that last fight out of people's mind. And I know we got to be quicker here. So I'm going to say Alex Morono wins this fight. Tim Means is a tough guy. He's going to have about a 3-inch height advantage, but he is 39 years old. He's lost his last 2, even though the Max Griffin fight was a split. But I think Alex realizes he has to be able to beat this guy, and he will. Alex Morono wins this fight. The odds makers are agreeing, making him 2.5 to 1 favorite, and I think that's valid. Alex wins this fight.
I agree. I'm going for a Morono win. Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill.
Wow, you want me to start on this, or should we alternate? Does it matter?
I can go with this one.
Yeah.
I think Angela Hill, her volume and striking is always good, but she is susceptible to the takedown and jiu-jitsu. And we know Mackenzie Dern, her jiu-jitsu is one of the best in all of women's divisions. I think this is a fight tailor made for Mackenzie Dern. I think she gets the job done.
Yeah. Angela Hill is 38 years old, and Mackenzie is, I think, 28. I think 30, actually 30. Still, that's a dramatic age difference. Over the years, Angela has improved her grappling. Her record is 15-12, but it could be just as easily 20-7. It could be 20-7.
She's
or
had
even
some
21-6.
really unfortunate decisions go against her.
Yeah, she really has, and she's fought everyone there is to fight. Her last 2 fights, she beat Lupita Godinez in a fight that Godinez decided not to wrestle for some reason, which is odd. She beat Emily Ducote, though, who is a good wrestler. Ducote is a better wrestler than Mackenzie, but was more of a newcomer and didn't really have the best hands. Mackenzie kind of got some hands over the years.
Yeah.
And but here's what it comes down to, and I often go over the psychological aspects of things. They're probably telling Mackenzie that if you can't beat this 38-year-old woman with 12 losses, then what are we doing here? You got nowhere to go. You know, Angela Hill has kind of become the gatekeeper and a bit of a journeyman, although I think she deserves to be known as better than that. But that's not always a disrespectful spot to be in. But yeah, Mackenzie Dern should win this fight. Unless it stays on the feet the whole time, in which case Angela can win, and they have Mackenzie just short of a 2-1 favorite. So I think those are good odds. I think there's value in Mackenzie, although Angela could win. I wouldn't bet my whole paycheck on that. I don't think you would either.
No, definitely not.
But
Ireland's Ian Gary going up against Daniel Rodriguez, fresh off his win against his last win, if I'm not mistaken, was against Zhang Li.
Let's find out. D-Rod, the man they call D-Rod, because, you know, an American baseball player, A-Rod, you know, is...
okay.
Yeah, and then he is D-Rod. I think, I'm not a baseball fan, like, whatsoever, so I think A-Rod is A-Rod is Alex Rodriguez, baseball player.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, a great guy I've interviewed half a dozen times over the last 5 years.
Brilliant backstory he has.
Yes, absolutely. So... he's had several good wins. In fact, his record in the UFC is quite good. He's 7-2 in the UFC. However, his last fight was a loss to Neil Magny. Neil Magny is such a tough, great fighter. He's tall and experienced and unorthodox. That was in November. Prior to that, Daniel beat Li Jinglong, Kevin Lee, Preston Parsons, Mike Perry. Did lose to England's, not England's Nicholas Dalby, or is it? Yes. No, Denmark's Nicholas Dalby. And then anyway, so this is a fight that the experience on a high level is in the favor of the American, Daniel Rodriguez. He is 36 years old, but he doesn't have a ton of miles on him. Yeah. He did get a later start. Ian Gary, or as he calls himself, Ian Machado Gary, as a Machado black belt. Yeah. 11-0. He's going to be the taller fighter, quite tall at 170 pounds, 6'3", nearly about, which is the same height as Neil Magny. Very, very, very tough guy. He came through for me against Song Kenan. I knew he would beat him, and he eventually stopped him. But only his 5th fight. He's 4-0, 2 stoppages, 2 decisions. You know, at 25 years old, though, this is quite young. I mean, here's what it is. I've talked to Daniel many times. He's a really good dude. He's a 2-1, slightly more than 2-1 underdog. Man, though, but I have Irish friends, and the Irish are good folks, like the English, like the Jamaicans. Everyone, you know, that we're and the Americans, you know. But darn, I think Daniel's got a good shot here. On paper, Ian Gary should win, but this is going to be a stern test. I think there's value in Daniel Rodriguez, and I think he will push Ian Gary, and this will be a really good test. This will be, I think, the first very, very good big test for the Irishman, Ian Gary.
I agree with you, but I do think Ian will come through. But I think this is a brilliant fight for him. And D-Rod always brings the fight. He never backs down. So we're going to really see if Gary is ready for the next level, because D-Rod is no joke. If he gets through D-Rod, and if he does it in impressive fashion as well, we have to start taking note about how good Ian Gary actually is.
Yes, indeed.
Co-main event. Anthony Lionheart Smith versus Johnny Walker, trainer at SBG. How do you see this one going?
Well, this is very interesting. Lionheart, many people have been pointing out that lately his height is not correct, and you see him at 6'4", but he's nowhere near that. And I think there's a bit of bullshit there. He's a tall guy. You can see that.
Very tall.
Yeah. So even if he's only 6'2.5" or just under 6'3", he's still tall. He's not like some people say. People are silly with this height thing. People will say that Sylvester Stallone and Tom Cruise are 5'2", and it's like, come the F on. They're not tall. They're not 6-footers. They're not 5'10". But they're not 5'2". Anyway, Anthony Smith against the taller, because Walker literally is, I think, 6'5", if not a bit taller. I think
6'6", I believe he might.
Yeah. And he's fighting now out of SBG Ireland, 20-7. He's 31 years old, which is perfectly fine age at that light heavyweight division. Just getting into his prime. He's learned a few lessons in the UFC. He started out with 3 wins, beating Khalil Rountree, Justin Ledet, and Misha Serkinov. Those fights haven't really all aged that well, except for Khalil, who's still a very tough guy. He did lose to Corey Anderson, where he got caught, and Nikita Krylov. Those have aged pretty well. Those are very tough guys. He did come back and beat Ryan Spann. He lost to Thiago Santos, which hasn't aged tremendously well, but he lost to Jamal Hill, which has aged very well. My man from Michigan, Motor City, like me, Detroit, is the champ. And then he did submit Ion Cutelaba and stop Paul Craig, the Scotsman. And he's been fighting regularly. So he fought January 21st of this year. Anthony Smith has not fought since July of last year, where he got stopped by Megaman Ankalaev. And Ankalaev was beating him anyway, I think, although he was, before that, he beat Ryan Spann, Jimmy Crute, and Devin Clark, lost to Rakic and Glover. He is 34 years old, but has got a lot of mileage. 53 fights. 53 fights and 27 fights for Walker. I mean,
it's a tough one.
It is a tough one. In all honesty, they both need this. They both really do need this. The older man, especially Smith, needs this. In all honesty, though, psychologically, I would think that Walker's camp is probably telling him, look, this is a good guy, but you're the bigger man. You're the younger man. If you can't beat Anthony Smith, because, again, he could be proverbial. I hate to say a gatekeeper, but somewhat. And I think that you don't beat Anthony Smith, you're not getting anywhere near the top 3 guys. So I think Walker needs to win this. I think he will win this, although he's only a slight favorite. A pick him on most sports books, and maybe 1.25 to 1 favorite on other sports books. I don't know that I'd bet a cent on that one. Probably cheering for the American Anthony Smith, the older guy I like to cheer for, and also, patriotic cheering for the American Anthony Smith. But Walker's a fun, nice, good, cool dude. I think he probably wins, but I wouldn't bet a penny on it. And I thought, curious to see what you think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Walker, in my opinion, I think Walker will win, but I would not be surprised if the fight goes the other way and Smith gets the win. So I think it's almost a 50-50 fight, to be honest.
It probably doesn't go the distance. Would you agree?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And the main event, Rosenstruik versus Almeida. I'll be honest, I think Almeida is going to take this, and I think he's going to really stamp his authority in this division. He's a scary man.
Yeah, without a doubt. This is a throwback fight. Striker versus grappler. We know the man from Suriname. Before you heard of Jairzinho Rozenstruik, had you ever heard of the country Suriname?
I had, but I didn't know much about it.
Right. I think, like most of us, I hadn't, or maybe I had. Hardly anyone knew it. And he has a Brazilian first name.
Yeah.
But he is a unique dude. I kind of like him. He's an easygoing guy.
Yeah.
He's just a powerful guy, but very personable. English is not his first language, but still, he still manages to be a personable, kind of a cool guy. It seems like he's got a bit of a sense of humor. Yeah. Not a taller heavyweight. At first, they had him all over the internet at 6'5". That wasn't true. They put him at 6'4". That wasn't true. Now they have him at 6'2". Most people say he's perhaps 6'1". And nevertheless, though, 35 years old, not that old for a heavyweight. He's been in this for a while. Yeah. He's lost to Francis Ngannou, no shame in that. Cyril Gane, no shame in that. Curtis Blades, no shame in that. And Alexander Volkov, no shame in that.
So he lost to the best.
Yeah, exactly. He just beat Chris Daukaus. And so he has a record of 13-4 and has been in the UFC for 4 full years and has had like 10 fights. Jailton Almeida, the Brazilian, is probably close to 6'4". So he's going to be the taller fighter, 31 years old, the younger fighter, 18-2. And he's been in the UFC only for just over 1 year. Not quite 1.5 years. In that time, he did beat Danilo Marquez. I don't think most people know who he is. Parker Porter, who is a tough guy. Anton Turkalj, and then Shamil Abdurakhimov. He's won all of them by stoppage. In fact, out of his 18 wins, he has 18 wins by stoppage.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah,
and it's a mixture of strikes and submissions.
Yes,
as well.
11 subs and 7 by strikes. However, he's not. I don't think he's going to stop Jairzinho by strikes on the feet. Maybe on the ground, maybe. But he is not a heavyweight. He usually comes in somewhere between 230 and 237 or 8, maybe 240. Jairzinho cuts to make 265 or just under. Odds makers are saying that, wow, nearly 5-1 favorite.
Wow, that's a massive disparity.
They're not giving.
I think that's a big disparity.
Yeah, I think that's an overlay. That's an overlay, I would say. Yeah, it shouldn't be that. They're not giving the big man a chance at all.
That's wild.
And in reality, if Almeida makes one mistake, bam.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah. So I would say on paper, Almeida should win. Would I lay that minus 550 to minus 590 to 1? No. Yeah. You could put him as a parlay piece, perhaps. Maybe put him as a parlay piece. Pick him to win by submission, and then make a bet that Rozenstruik wins by knockout.
Yeah.
So a little sprinkle all around there. Rozenstruik needs this win. He needs this win. He's the older fighter with a lot more losses. However, Jailton Almeida is on his way to being up there, and he would be an exciting addition to the heavyweight division. So, probably Almeida wins this, but he better be careful. I would not be shocked if Rozenstruik wins this, especially if it stays on the feet. And Almeida, as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, isn't, again, a world-class wrestler, although he's good. So hopefully the big man Rozenstruik has been pressing his wrestling defense. Yeah, what do you think? I think you're leaning. You already said you're feeling Almeida pretty confident.
Yeah, I think Almeida gets it done. But not at those odds. Like as you said, one mistake and it could be lights out. I mean, you saw that in the Overeem fight. He was losing every round. The Overeem made one mistake and it almost lost his lip.
Yep. Oh yeah. You know what I like real quick about some of these heavyweights like Rozenstruik with that power is he's a very low key guy also.
Yeah.
He's the type guy, if he wins, he looks at the camera like this and kind of goes like,
like just another day.
Exactly. So okay, I guess that's done then. So and I'd like to see Biggie Boy do something. I'd like to see, even if he doesn't win, I'd like to see him, and I think he will do some damage. And Almeida better be darn careful. And I'll tell you what, if Almeida cannot take Rozenstruik down, he's got to keep on faking and thinking. Because if he can make Rozenstruik so tentative that Rozenstruik is hardly throwing anything, then he can beat him on the feet. But my thought is if Biggie Boy stops the takedowns, he's going to get ready to.
It's a long night.
Yeah. Should be exciting though, definitely.
Indeed. Well, people, if you haven't already, please do smash the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. This is another episode in the books. Some good talking points. Let us know in the comment section, is Sterling your bantamweight GOAT? What more does he have to do to become the bantamweight GOAT? And do you see Rozenstruik being able to beat off the challenge of Almeida? Colin, anything you want to add before we go, and where can people find you to support you?
Thank you. MMA Power Hour Tuesdays on Twitter Spaces, and then also UFE. Look for UFE on Twitter and UFE at UFE.world, Ultimate Fan Experience, doing some interviews for them as well. And and so, but always here. I love doing this here, this MMA from London to LA. Since it's in England and since Callum has a lot of fans, I'll do this for my Scottish fans. I won't do that one I told you about because that's only for personal friends. But I will say, as my Scottish fans would say, instead of subscribe, subscribe. So please subscribe, and you can catch both of us on Twitter. So that's from my Scottish fans, and really appreciate it. Always love making you laugh, Cal. Always love chatting with you and chopping up with you, my friend. It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine, Colin. And you can find me at Callum Sanderson on all social medias. Guys, thank you so much. Please do smash the like button. Until we see you next time. Take care.
Peace.